Hello and welcome to the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. My name is John Shipley. I'm your host and beat reporter, and I have been your beat reporter covering the Jacksonville Jaguars for On SI every single day since August 2019. And we are continuing to march forward to another offseason together. As always, you can always find our 100% free 24/7 boots on the ground coverage of the Jacksonville Jaguars when you follow us on social media such as Facebook and Twitter. And you can follow us at Jaguars on SI. You can also find us at www.si.com/NFL/Jaguars. Hello, folks, and welcome to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. Today, with OTA's minicamp now officially behind us, we are going to look at three players who I believe you can call the winners of the Jacksonville Jaguars offseason. Three guys who, during offseason practices, based on what stuff we've seen, based on the stuff that the coaches and players have said, the three players who, in my mind, have had the most positive momentum. Now, this isn't necessarily, three players stocks up, anything like that. It's just the three players who I think, regardless of their role, you can say these guys had the best offseason for the Jaguars. Number one, I'm going to go with Dyami Brown. I think Trevor Lawrence more or less said it himself after the final minicamp practice where he basically said, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but he's got a lot of passes. And it's true. I'd say, I wasn't keeping stats during minicamp or OTAs because I'm a relatively stable person. But if I was, I'd venture to say Dyami Brown probably caught the most passes in team settings. That doesn't necessarily say, okay, this is his role going into the season. That's aggregated as me saying Dyami Brown was the Jaguars' number one target in the offseason. That's just the nature of the beast. But Dyami Brown definitely, in my opinion, stood out throughout the entire offseason program. I think when they signed him, it was pretty clear that a lot of people saw him as maybe a risky signing just because of the limited production in Washington up until really the playoffs of last year, throughout his 4 seasons there. And I think the book on him and his skill set was this is a guy who can catch screens, he can block, and he can go downfield. We've seen him go downfield, and we've seen them get him involved on screens and other ways that you can manufacture touches for a player. It definitely seems like he's going to be used in that role, kind of the role of, okay, this is where we kind of spam easy touches to a guy and just get a ball in his hands. But as Liam Cohen himself kind of explained on Thursday, he did a lot of work in the middle of the field. I venture to say he caught the most of his passes on in-breaking routes, whether that's stuff like posts, slants, dig routes. It definitely seemed like him and Trevor Lawrence built a connection over the course of the offseason when it came to hitting the middle of the field. And they've been missing that middle of the field target for a while now. Christian Kirk, of course, was really good underneath, as was Evan Ingram. They've had guys who can win deep, guys who can win on the sideline, but haven't really had many guys. I'd say Brian Thomas Jr. is honestly the closest in recent years who can go over the middle and make an impact. And you saw Dyami Brown do that during the course of OTAs, minicamp, etc. I think he had a really strong offseason. I think you'd hear the same from the Jaguars coaches, staff, quarterback. They've all said the same. To me, he is one of the winners of the Jacksonville Jaguars offseason so far. Looking, on the other side of the ball now. And I know we've said his name a million times over the last 2-3 weeks. I don't care because we can only report what we see and what happens. And if one guy is the guy consistently making plays, that's what we're going to talk about. That's Monteric Brown. I think Buster Brown had a great offseason. Anthony Campanelli thinks so. Liam Cohen obviously thinks so. Ron Miles thinks so. You can tell, in my opinion, he's practicing with the most confidence I've ever seen from him. I've covered his whole career to this point. And he's always been a confident, sound player. But I feel like you've seen a different Buster Brown on the practice field this offseason. Obviously, when you look at the scheme change, and I was openly saying last year, I didn't think he fit last year's defensive scheme. He, in many respects, in my opinion, played far better in that scheme than I anticipated, and I'm willing to, eat my words on that. I think if they played a game today, he's probably starting across from Tyson Campbell. Like if they go in the offense goes in a 3-receiver set, I think it's him and Tyson on the outside and Jordan Lewis on the inside. I truly believe that if a game was to happen today. And a lot, of course, can change over the next however many weeks. Obviously, Jarian Jones and him are going to battle for that spot. They could always go with Jordan Lewis on the outside and then move him inside. Then you still have to find that, obviously, third corner to play on the outside. But I think Buster Brown's put himself in terrific positioning for that job right now. And this is a guy who, we don't really talk about much when it comes to what draft class he was in. He's entering a contract year. This is a big year for Buster Brown. If Buster Brown starts and plays well for the Jaguars, I could see him getting a nice, solid extension just because he's somebody he's always going to be well liked by coaches because he's known as just a quiet, hardworking guy. And now that they're in a scheme that, in my opinion, and I believe Liam Cohen said as much on Thursday or Wednesday, whenever he was asked about Buster, their zone scheme that lets him play with more vision on the quarterback instead of vision on the receiver and not even looking at the quarterback, to me, fits Buster like a glove. Him and Tyson Campbell, to me, both have shown that they can excel in that kind of scheme. And for Buster, the instincts, the awareness, the smarts, the toughness, it's all there. So I think Buster had a great offseason, made a ton of plays in the practices that we saw. Breaking up passes against Brian Thomas, against Travis Hunter, against De'Ami Brown. He was a tough guy for the Jaguars to throw against all offseason long. And I think as a natural result of that, when training camp opens, could definitely see him as, at least in my opinion, that starting guy across from Tyson Campbell. All right, now we are up to our last name. To me, the final winner of the Jaguars offseason, I would have to say Tyson Campbell. It's another cornerback, I know, but the cornerbacks I thought had a good offseason. I thought Jordan Lewis really stood out. I thought, obviously, we discussed Buster Brown, but Tyson Campbell, to me, looked like 2022 Tyson Campbell or 2023 Tyson Campbell in practice when him and Calvin Ridley were having great battles, and he was having a really good season until injuries happened. When Tyson Campbell has been healthy during his NFL career, he's been a phenomenal cornerback. I think you can say a top 12 to 15 cornerback based on pure talent. He has the length, he has the size, he has the speed, he has the awareness and instincts and smarts and physicality. He has everything you could ask for in a cornerback. And when healthy, he's displayed that. The issue for him, of course, over the last couple of years has been remaining healthy, has been, can he go a full 17-game season without either missing time or being forced to play through an injury? Because even some of the games that he's, I'd say, played over the last 2 seasons, he's a really tough guy. He's played through some injuries. You can just tell when he's injured that he's not Tyson. And this offseason looks obviously 100% healthy, refreshed. He's been dominant. He really has. Has had some really, really good battles with Brian Thomas Jr. on the outside. I don't think anybody else has really been able to do anything on him. He's made some really good plays against De'Ami Brown, Travis Hunter, etc. Tyson Campbell, to me, for my money, probably the most impressive practice player from the Jaguars during this offseason program. And, of course, Buster Brown is very impressive. De'Ami Brown is very impressive. I'd say Trayvon Walker and Josh Lyons-Allen were impressive. Brendan Strange really stood out. We mentioned Jordan Lewis earlier. There were a lot of guys who made some positive impressions. But pound for pound, in my opinion, Tyson Campbell was the most dominant practice player for the Jaguars this offseason. I thought he did a lot of good things. I thought that he obviously was able to show that he's a fit in this scheme. Like we've said before, like we even said last year, He just when he has his eyes and can read the quarterback, his instincts just make him a special player. And I think he is set up for, if he can stay healthy, a special season. Thank you guys for listening to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. My name is John Shipley. Please make sure you give us a follow, like, subscription, whatever on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all other podcast platforms when you find us at the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast.